All right, welcome to the 30th edition of Before the Battle. I am Nick Baldwin. He is Paolo of Sportsnet.ca and today's Knockout.com. Daniel Levy is off this week. He is in Vegas. As lucky as he is, of course, he's going to be watching UFC 197 tomorrow night. He's at the weigh-ins and the press conference right now, so he's unable to join us, but just me and Paolo breaking down UFC 197. Paolo, how are you?
I'm good, Nick. I'm really excited. Obviously, we're just coming from a buzz from that UFC 200 press conference. We got the weigh-ins in 30 minutes, and we got Bellator tonight. Lots of MMA things happening. We're gonna try to run through this as quickly and as well as we can.
Yeah, you can't complain about all of the MMA going on right now. Bellator with Benson Henderson taking on Andrei Koreshkov for the welterweight title later tonight. Bellator 153 on Spike. Early start time, so that kicks off in, I want to say, 2.5 hours, or actually 1.5, I believe, right after the weigh-ins conclude, basically, for UFC 197. We're going to make this a shorter show. It should be shorter without Daniel, of course. We only have us talking. So let's get right to UFC 197 with the prelim card. UFC Fight Pass prelims. We got Efren Escudero taking on Kevin Lee. Paula, who do you like in this one?
I'm really liking Kevin Lee here. You know what? I'm tempted to say that Kevin Lee is on paper better than Efren Escudero everywhere, but I remember everyone said that when he took on Leo Santos, he gets caught and he gets finished. Now, I think Leo Santos is actually a superior fighter to Escudero, so I don't think Kevin Lee's going to get caught. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, and I think he should roll through a decision here, probably a 29-28.
Yeah, I like Kevin Lee here as well. I think he's, just like you mentioned, a better fighter than Escudero. I don't see it being a close fight, actually. Efren Escudero, he's a tough fighter. That's one thing, obviously, going for him. Kevin Lee's coming off a knockout loss. No one really saw it coming to Leonardo Santos back in December at UFC 194. It's going to be interesting to see how he rebounds from that loss. I think he'll look good. I think he'll come out relatively the same, if not improved. I think he's better than Efren Escudero everywhere. Escudero is tough, like I mentioned, and that's probably the only thing going for him. I actually like Kevin Lee to finish Escudero, most likely by submission midway through the fight. I believe this would be the first time Escudero has been finished. If not, it's one of the only times it would be. So I'm liking Kevin Lee to get the submission win in this lightweight matchup. Now, moving on, we have a light heavyweight matchup between Marcos Rogerio de Lima and Clint Hester, who's moving up to light heavyweight from a few losses at middleweight as of late. Who do you like? Do you like Clint Hester here or Marcos Rogerio de Lima?
No, see, this is hard because I think I really like Clint Hester here. I think moving up is going to help him like it did Robert Whittaker and Dustin Poirier, because I think he was cutting a little bit too much weight and focusing too much on his diet and not training as much. And I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I mean, Pazao, aka De Lima, he's a very limited fighter. He's this guy, he likes to stand and trade, and he has heavy hands, and he's a pretty tough guy. But this guy only has cardio for like 3 minutes. So if Hester can like outlast him for the 3 minutes and not get caught, I think he can either sub him or win on a decision.
I'm gonna side with Marcos Rogerio de Lima here, Pazao. I've been picking Clint Hester fairly often in his UFC fights. I picked him against Robert Whittaker, and now Whittaker, who we'll get to actually on this card a little bit later on. He's been looking phenomenal, so no shame in losing to Whittaker. Then he gets finished by Vitor Miranda. I'm still picking Clint Hester. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the weigh-ins to see how Pazao looks, because he actually looks a tiny bit smaller in his new UFC.com photo. That could just be the angles and the lighting and things along those lines, or he could be a bit smaller physically, which is never a good sign. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that's the case. I don't like to talk about that too much because, I mean, no, size, being a bit smaller doesn't necessarily mean you're on steroids or anything like that. So that's, I want to take that with a grain of salt, talk about that with a grain of salt. But it's going to be interesting. Clint Hester, though, I'm not picking him here. I used to always pick him, but I've learned my lesson. I think De Lima's going to be the bigger guy, despite the photos that I think might be showing him a bit smaller than he used to be. I think his power will come into play here. I like him to finish Clint Hester on the feet. Clint Hester is skillfully the better fighter, but I think the size could be a bit of an issue. Although Clint Hester, I'm reading right now, has a slight height and reach advantage, which is a bit surprising, but De Lima is a lot bigger. Not necessarily those stats, but just overall, he's a bigger guy. I think he's more powerful too. It's going to be a brawl. Neither guy are too fantastic skill wise. So it's going to be interesting. Whoever lands first will win. I'll go with De Lima. Anyone can win this one. Walt Harris taking on Cody East, another one where anyone can win, really. Heavyweight matchup. Cody East was featured on Looking for a Fight last episode. I had him on my other show, the MMA Circus. He is fairly confident in his skills against Walt Harris. Paolo, do you like East here or Walt Harris?
Now, this is a very interesting tilt because the thing is, Cody East is another one of these hype, what's it called again? Looking for a fight prospects that Dana White has. And but I think he's getting a step up in competition against Walt Harris. I know that's surprising to say because people look at Walt Harris and like, this guy lost all his UFC fights and didn't look good in any of them. I mean, he got finished by Nikita Krylov, and Krylov's like a light heavyweight. And the way he got finished in that fight was telling because, yeah, he ate a head kick. And, if you eat a head kick, you're likely going to, not get knocked unconscious. But the thing is, he got hurt, and then he ate another punch, and he just went down on his own and turtled up. So the way how I could see this fight happening is he could be, they could stand in the middle of the octagon in the pocket and just start trading shots, and East is going to land something painful on Walt Harris, and he's probably going to go down and turtle up, or he lands something on or he lands something on East and puts him out entirely. I mean, it's heavyweights, man. You can't be too confident with your pick here, but I'm going to go with Cody East here, making it 3-0 for debuting Looking for a Fight fighters.
And then he's going to go on to lose his either second or third fight. It seems like that's also the case with Sage Northcutt and Randy Brown as of late. But I like Cody East here as well. It's an interesting fight in the sense that anything can happen. Cody East, like you mentioned, this is a step up, believe it or not, because Walt Harris is a UFC fighter. He's good enough to be, I guess, with the UFC. Cody East, his other opponents, as of right now, we're not really. I like Cody East to get the knockout here. Walt Harris is quite a bit heavier, and his chest is really bigger. His kind of core, I guess you can say, is a lot bigger. Cody East, the size, he's a small heavyweight, so he's going to be interesting. I think Walt Harris, like, anything can happen. Walt Harris could knock him out. Cody East could also knock out Walt Harris. So I guess I shouldn't really touch on their size too much. It really shouldn't be too much of a factor. It could be Walt Harris. He could even look to grind out Cody East. Who knows what Walt Harris has been working on? He's been out since the end of 2014. I'm going to go with the trend of Looking for a Fight fighters going well. Looking good in their first outing. I like Cody East here, the freight train by knockout in the first round, but nothing would surprise me because they're two lower end heavyweight fighters. Now, kicking off the Fox Sports 1 prelims, we got James Vick and Gleyko Franca. Now, this is one that I wish Daniel was here because he's really high on James Vick, of course. Considers him a buddy. He's been on his show multiple times. He likes him here. He's quite the sizable favorite against the tough Brazil 4 winner, I believe. Yeah, tough Brazil 4, I believe. Winner, Gleyko Franca. Paolo, do you like Vick here to get the job done, or will Franca get the upset?
It's tough to say, and I don't think he's too much of a Vic is too much of a sizable favorite because I think last time I checked he was like minus 180 or something. He wasn't the dreaded minus 170 that Daniel says you shouldn't bet. So I think he managed to bet him when he was a bit higher than minus 170. So good on him. But I have such a bad read on this fight, so I'm not very confident on my pick on Vic here, but I favored him to win because he has more of the UFC experience and he has some of the nastier guillotine chokes. And I think Franca might try, being the smaller guy, might try to like outgrind him because he doesn't want to get in because he's going to give up a lot in terms of reach if he tries to strike with him. and he might get caught in that guillotine, man. I mean, he caught Jake Matthews and he caught Ramsey Nijem, and I think Jake Matthews is like a better fighter than Glyco. But man, I don't really know a lot about Glyco. I saw him on Tough Brazil, but it's really hard to get a good reading of fighters during that show because some of them underperform, some of them overperform. So who knows how good he really is? But I like Vic here, probably by first round guillotine.
Yeah, I'm liking James Vick here as well. I like him by submission. I think Franca will look to overcommit on a takedown or something along those lines, and Vick will just grab that neck and either score a rear naked choke or a guillotine, something along those lines. I like James Vick here all day. He should be a sizable favorite as he is. I don't know the exact line as right now. Yeah, minus 180 for Vic. It has gone down, I believe. So it's going to be interesting. Franca's his second UFC fight. The jitters, maybe he had a few jitters in his debut when he fought Fernando Bruno to win the Ultimate Fighter. Vic, though, more experience. UFC experience, I should say. Franca actually has more MMA experience. I'm going to go James Vick here. All around better fighter. He should get the submission win quite easily. Moving on, we have a women's strawweight matchup between former champion Carla Esparza, who's returning for the very first time since her TKO loss, to now champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk, taking on Juliana Lima, the number 14th ranked women's strawweight. Paolo, do you like Esparza to get the job done in her return to action?
That's really tough to say because the thing about Carla Esparza, I think she's this type of fighter. I mean, she's a vet. She's one of these longtime vets in the sport. So I think in terms of improving, I don't think she's going to improve as much anymore. And she took a beating from Jędrzejczyk in her last fight. And I mean, that was the kind of beating that sort of changes a fighter and might shake their confidence for good. I mean, the book is out on Esparza already. I mean, she's mostly just a grappler. If she can't grind you out or take you to the mat where she's good, her confidence is slowly going to fade away. And the thing about Juliana Lima is, I mean, she's no Jędrzejczyk, but her defensive wrestling is pretty good, and she's a pretty solid striker. So what happens if Esparza can't take her down again? Is she's going to like fold again and she's going to look for a way out? That could likely happen. But I don't know that for sure. I don't know if she got her confidence back or anything like that. So based on just being a slightly better fighter, I'd pick her to win, but I'm definitely not betting on her. This is a dogger pass for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that I do believe Esparza takes this win, but I don't think it comes super easily. Juliana Lima is very tough. This is a situation where coming off a very bad beating. Now, this is something I like to talk about that I'm surprised not as many people do talk about. Look at Renan Barão after he was demolished by TJ Dillashaw. Comes back against Gagnon. He gets the submission, but he doesn't look that fantastic and that impressive doing it. Anthony Pettis gets beat up badly by Rafael dos Anjos for 25 minutes. Yes, he comes back against another tough fighter in Eddie Alvarez. Definitely no slouch. He's fighting for the title. He's a top contender. Unlike, say, Mich Gagnon or even Juliana Lima, and he still underperforms. We all overestimated him really coming into that fight. Yes, styles do make fights, and Alvarez has a good style to beat. Anthony Pettis does. Edson Barboza, we will talk about that later. But Esparza, it's going to be interesting. Does she come back better than ever, or does she come back gun-shy? Does she come back just not confident, like Anthony Pettis supposedly did come back, like Renan Barão did come back, in my opinion? I don't think this beating to Joanna Champion will have affected her too much. I don't think she's going to be the Carla Esparza that submitted Rose Namajunas in the first women's strawweight in the first women's strawweight title fight. She's going to look good enough. She's going to be good enough to beat a fighter like Juliana Lima. I think she will be able to take her down. I like her to grind out a victory here. Do what she does best and grind out a win. I don't think it's going to be pretty, though. I'll go Esparza by unanimous decision. Danny Roberts, highly touted prospect, taking on Dominic Steele in a welterweight outing. Who do you like in this one, Paolo?
This is probably the easiest fight for me to call, at least Danny Roberts by smash. I mean, Danny Roberts, this guy's a really highly touted prospect. From what I've seen about him, he's a stereotypical kind of English fighter where he has really good, solid boxing, but his ground game is a little bit shaky. But I mean, he goes out there against Nathan Coy, and I bet Nathan Coy because I thought Nathan Coy would like wrestle screw him to a decision, and he goes out there and submits him, and I'm like, wow, this guy's obviously been working on his grappling. And with that said, Dominic Steele, I mean, this guy's coming off a KO win over a much smaller fighter. I mean, let's give him that. But he got like one punch. He almost got one punch knocked out by Zach Cummings, and Zach Cummings isn't exactly known as like this heavy-handed puncher. And I mean, Cody Saftich from Fight Network made a good point. Then when Dominic Steele gets knocked out, he gets knocked out fast. That means his chin is definitely not as good anymore. And you don't want to be going up against Danny Roberts, who's got really explosive one-punch knockout power. And I think eventually he'll find Steele's chin and he's going to put him away. So Danny Roberts probably by round 1 knockout.
I like Danny Roberts here as well. I like him by first-round knockout. Dominic Steele has been knocked out several times on the regional circuit. He suffered that first-round knockout to Zach Cummings, as you mentioned, in his debut. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he has fought since then. I just can't recall versus who. I believe he did win. I'm just pulling that up right now. If my
mini dunk.
Right. That yes. Was that a knockout? Was that a finish win?
Yeah, he slammed them, but I mean, he was the bigger guy. Mini Kim was a lightweight, moving up to welterweight on the last. I mean, I think that was a short notice fight. So
yeah, the reason I didn't remember that 100% was that was the Seoul, South Korea card that I watched overnight and was basically half asleep watching all the fights. So that's why I didn't remember it completely. But yeah, Dominic Steele, not impressive really whatsoever. He hasn't looked that good over his 2-fight UFC tenure. Danny Roberts looked really spectacular in his debut against Nathan Coe. I like Danny Roberts to pick up a first-round knockout here. Most likely one of the locks on the card. There are a lot of fairly heavy favorites on this card. Fairly wide fights. Clear fights, I guess you could say, but this is definitely one of them. Hot Chocolate should get the win in the first round by knockout. Now, headlining the prelims, Sergio Pettis, Chris Kalaitis in a flyweight matchup. Who do you like?
I like Sergio Pettis here, but as we know about Sergio Pettis, his chin is definitely not the best. And I mean, it's funny too because he's such a young fighter and he already has a pretty shaky chin, and we know that chins don't get better over time. And the thing about Kalaitis is this guy is a good athlete, even though he's a bit older. He's older, but I think he's younger in terms of fight years. Yeah, he's good. He's got explosive ability and he's pretty well rounded. The only thing about him is he can be a little bit wild and undisciplined sometimes. And Sergio Pettis is much more precise and technical. So based on that, conventional wisdom, I'm going to pick the more technical fighter in Sergio Pettis, but am I going to bet on him? Definitely not. I learned from betting on him against Ryan Benoit, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again tomorrow.
Yes, I like Sergio Pettis here as well. I like him to early on. I think it's going to be on the feet. I think Sergio Pettis will be able to pick him apart on the feet. I think Kalaitis will tire out a little bit. I think Pettis' conditioning and gas tank is a bit better than Chris Kalaitis is. I like Pettis to win by decision. A late stoppage wouldn't surprise me. I actually think Kalaitis is the wrestler, is the grinder in this one, but I wouldn't be shocked if Pettis is able to take him down when Kalaitis tires a little bit in the later rounds. My thing is going to go like this. Pettis wins on the feet first round or two, picks him apart, and then third round, getting some takedowns and just really locking up that 30-27 win. Kalaitis may be able to sneak in around maybe second, maybe even first when he's probably has the best chance of getting a knockout or winning the fight for that matter. But I'm going to go Sergio Pettis. I think he'll extend his winning streak to 2 in a row. I like the flyweight prospect here, Sergio Pettis, by decision. Now, opening up the pay-per-view main card, 5-fight main card, 10 p.m. ET, 7 p.m. Pacific. Yair Rodriguez taking on Andre Fili, two up-and-comers of the featherweight division. Who do you like in this 145-pound clash?
Now, you know what? This is a fight that I really have no idea as a capper breaking this down, because in my opinion, they're all on paper, at least if you go on broad generalizations here, they're very similar. They're both young prospects. They're up and comers. They both have that same body type where they're both rangy guys, and they both have a diverse skill set, especially in terms of the striking department. They can be creative on their feet. So I mean, how is that fight going to play out? I mean, there's a chance that it could go to the mat. It's going to be a scramble, and if it goes there, I'm going to favor Yair, because Fili tends to make a lot of mistakes when it goes to the fight. I mean, to the mat. Like, sometimes maybe he overcommits. He tries a risky escape attempt, and then he ends up getting caught. Like, or I mean, I guess Godofredo Pepe. I bet him in that fight. It was one of my confident bets there, and then he gets flying armbarred. I mean, it's Pepe. This guy always comes through as an underdog. I mean, he's just this crazy underdog fighter. But you know what I mean? But that was like a while ago. So Philly's definitely been improving. So has Yair. But from a betting perspective, if you're gonna bet this, it's probably dog or pass. But from a pick point, why not? I'll go with Philly. I'll go with Philly to pull off the upset here, based off of having fought better competition.
Now, before I break down that fight, backtracking very slightly, isn't it bizarre that the UFC.com website has Kalades listed as an American?
Wait, hold on. He's listed as American because when he was fighting in the what's called this, was that the Saskatchewan card or whatever the card that he debuted in, I think the Nova Scotia card.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a couple of flags that were like, what is he, Greek or Macedonian?
Greek.
Something like that. Yeah, so what is he? Is he Greek? Is he American, or is he Canadian? I mean, is he all three? I haven't met anyone with 3 passports before, so that's interesting.
I just assumed he is Canadian, because he can be like a Greek ethnicity background or whatever you want to consider it, but he can still be born in Canada. Now this is just interesting to me, because Wikipedia says he is Canadian. His nationality is Canadian. He was born in Nova Scotia. So UFC is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, he's not American. I don't even think he's like 1% American.
No, that definitely does screw up, because I think he was a late replacement against Paddy Houlihan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So they took a local guy, and he's from Nova Scotia, so they took him, right?
The UFC, they're just messing up there. Yeah, that had me second guessing myself. I remember I was thinking, because earlier today I put in my predictions on bloodyelbow.com, which will be published in a few, I want to say an hour or so, and I said Story Canada because I picked against Kalades, and then I saw this and I was second guessing myself. But nevertheless, Andre Fili, Yair Rodriguez, a very fun featherweight matchup. I'm looking forward to it. One of the best fights on the card, stylistically, matchup wise. I'm going to go with Andre Fili like you. I like Andre Fili here by decision. I haven't been overly impressed like Yair Rodriguez, like it seems like everyone else has been. Yes, he's a fun fighter. He's a wild fighter. He does things that no one else has done before, striking wise, but he should. I just think he should look a bit more, not convincing, but he should win a bit more easily against guys like Dan Hooker and Charles Rosa if he wants to be the next featherweight champion or a featherweight contender. I don't see it in El Pantera. I don't see it either in Andre Fili. I don't think Andre Fili will ever be a number 5 contender of the 145-pound division. I think Yair probably has a better chance of doing so, but right now, I don't think it's Rodriguez's time. I think it's Fili's time to keep climbing the ladder. I think Rodriguez, his time will come, but I don't think it's right now. I think Andre Fili, experience will come into play. I like him here by decision as a underdog pick. Now, moving on, we have middleweights Robert Whittaker, a number 7 contender, taking on number 13 Rafael Natal. This seems like a fairly easy fight to call. I'm going Robert Whittaker here. Do you like him as well, or are you going with the underdog here, Rafael Natal?
Yeah, I like Whittaker here. I like him to knock out Natal, because Natal doesn't really have the best chin, and Whittaker's a really good striker, man. I mean, he outstruck Uriah Hall. And I mean, come on. I mean, Rafael Natal beat Uriah Hall, but a lot of people still think Uriah Hall had that fight wrapped up. It's just that he was being too comfortable and not doing a lot. So he sort of like lost the fight, as opposed to Rafael Natal winning the fight. Uriah Hall lost the fight. The thing about Sapo, yeah, I think that's his nickname, right? Sapo. I know another fighter's called Sapo, but yeah. The thing about Sapo is he has all the tools you want in a fighter. I mean, he has good wrestling, underrated wrestling actually. He's got, he's sick on jiu-jitsu. That's his main thing. And then he's a Muay Thai instructor too. But the thing about him is he doesn't put them all together, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, if he fights a striker, you could think like, oh, he definitely can use his wrestling on this guy. It doesn't always do that. When he's fighting a jiu-jitsu guy, he could keep the fight standing and a strike. I mean, it doesn't always do that. So against Robert Whittaker, I think what he's going to try to do is to try to prove a point and try to strike with Whittaker, which would be bad news for him because I think he's going to get slept if he tries to.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight in the sense that Natal has one way to win, basically, and that's grind out Whittaker. I don't see him being able to do that. I think Whittaker, his takedown defense will be strong enough here. I like him to keep it standing where he wants it to be. I like him to knock out Natal, who has a very slight suspect chin. I don't think it's as bad as some people think. I think he can take more damage than some people think. But Robert Whittaker, if he tags you, even with a slight amount of power, you're going to sleep. Robert Whittaker, I think, knocks out Rafael Natal in the first round, and I think he makes it look easy. Moving on, former champion Anthony Pettis, the older brother, of course, of Sergio Pettis, who takes on Claudius. We already talked about that one. Anthony Pettis, Edson Barboza, very, very, very awesome lightweight matchup. I've been calling for this fight for over a year now. When RDA beat Pettis up back in March of 2015, I said in a article that I wanted this fight finally happen. So I'm really happy about that. Pettis Barboza, who do you like?
Yeah, you've been calling for this fight for a while. I think when Pettis lost to the Dos Anjos, is that when you started calling for him to fight Barboza?
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly, but it's weird because no one else has been, like, maybe some people have, but UFC matchmakers haven't thought of this, and it just seems like the perfect matchup.
Yeah, I mean, for Pettis, because we know that Edson Barboza is not going to go wrestler on him and try to grind him out like Eddie Alvarez, Gilbert Melendez, and all those other guys did. I mean, but who knows, right? If anyone's going to go wrestler here, I think it's Anthony Pettis because he actually does have some wrestling, at least offensively. Defensively, not a lot, but offensively, he can take fighters down. I mean, he went wrestler on Jeremy Stevens. I mean, that was after he lost to Clay Guida, and then he went. I think maybe that was an overreaction to his loss to Guida, so he just went to out wrestle Jeremy Stevens. But I mean, is he gonna try to do that against Barboza? I think so, but I think Barboza's gonna be able to get right back up, and he's gonna spend most of the time on their feet. And if it's gonna be like a striking fight, I think Barboza has a good chance for an upset because the thing about Barboza is this guy's a pressure fighter and he can be assertive, aggressive when it comes to the striking. And the thing about Pettis, as we know about him, is he doesn't like getting pressured because he keeps moving backward, which is like a big no-no, and he'll get himself backed up into a cage and then he's going to lose. And I think we might see that happen with Barboza here. But I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to pick Pettis here because I think that he's eventually going to land a clean shot on Barboza. He's probably going to daze him and probably going to submit him. It might look something like the Cerrone fight. So I'm going to pick Pettis by submission, but I'm definitely not betting on Pettis here.
No, everyone has learned their lessons when it comes to betting on Pettis as of late. After that Gilbert Melendez fight, I believe, when he fought RDA, all went downhill from there. And I think it keeps going downhill for Anthony Pettis, the former lightweight champion here. I'm picking Edson Barboza as another underdog on the main card. I almost picked Eddie Alvarez against Anthony Pettis, and people were going to call me crazy. But honestly, now not to like say, oh yeah, I should have picked him, but like people did persuade me in just picking Pettis. But nevertheless, whatever, doesn't matter what happened in the past. Pettis, like I talked about with Carlos Esparza, Hennenbrock comes back, gets demolished by TJ, comes back, doesn't look that good. Anthony Pettis comes back from a beating over RGA. Despite the stylistic matchup not playing out in his favor, he still didn't look good. He still had his opportunities on his feet to, say, knock out Eddie Alvarez. It wasn't 100% for 15 minutes, him getting grounded out, although it was close to that. This is a good matchup stylistically for him, but I don't think that'll matter. I think it's also a good match for Barboza. Both guys need their space. They're going to stand back. They're going to trade shots. I don't think either guy lands a powerful enough kick or punch to to end the fight. I think it goes the distance. I think Barboza will be able to be a bit more active. I think Pettis will look a bit gun shy, which is unfortunate because he's one of the best lightweights out there, or was once when he was the champion. I think Barboza will be able to be a bit more active. I think he'll be able to just outpoint Pettis over the course of 15 minutes on the feet. I don't think Pettis will go for takedowns. I don't think Barboza will either. That would be a bit surprising. But I could understand it because Pettis, that's probably his best chance to win. You don't want to be striking with Barboza. Same to Barboza. You don't want to be striking with the former champion in Anthony Pettis. Nevertheless, I think it's going to be a 15-minute striking war. It's going to be close. It's going to be a close competition. But I like Edson Barboza to get the better of Anthony Pettis and win by close unanimous decision. Now, co-main event, we have 5 minutes before the weigh-ins kick off. So, thankfully, we have two fairly wide fights here that probably don't require tons of breaking down. Demetrius Johnson, flyweight champion, taking on Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. Could this be DJ's toughest test to date? Do you think Cejudo has a chance here?
Yeah, you know what? I actually have an article with Sportsnet coming out on how Henry Cejudo can beat Demetrius Johnson. So it's mostly theoretical. Obviously, like these things are, they're on paper, they sound good, and you're like, oh, it makes sense. But when the fight actually plays out, you're like, none of that made sense, right? I mean, that's how it is. But the thing about Cejudo, what this guy is, he's had Mighty Mouse as a target ever since he was still in high school. I mean, he has been planning his whole life for this moment. So and then we might see another Holly Holm over Ronda Rousey, except obviously Cejudo's not a plus 1,200 underdog here. And some people are actually picking him to win because he has that strong wrestling background and he's got the Golden Gloves level of boxing. So I think he might give Demetrius Johnson a fight here, man. I think he has him and his camp have been planning for this, so they're going to be ready. They're going to know how to beat Demetrius Johnson. The only thing is, I don't know if they'll be able to implement it because DJ, as we know, this guy is lightning fast. And I mean, speed kills. You know, like they say, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, what if you fight a guy who's like so much faster than you actually planned for? I mean, your plans go out the window. So I think Demetrius Johnson is still gonna pull out the win here, probably by decision, and probably their Alexander Gustafsson, John Jones moment. I mean, Johnson being the dominant champion finally gets a challenge that can raise his stock a bit here. So. Johnson's the pick, but if Cejudo wins, I'd be really happy.
I don't see it being a close fight like John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. I like Demetrius Johnson to do what Mighty Mouse does, win a non-competitive decision, or even get a late submission, maybe even a knockout. A late stoppage wouldn't shock me, but I'm going Demetrius Johnson by decision. I think he's better ever. I would be surprised if Cejudo was able to get him down even once. If he does, I'd be surprised, but I don't think Cejudo would be able to hold him down and grind him out. I think Johnson will be able to keep it standing where he wants it to be most likely. Maybe even gets on top throughout the fight when he's the quicker guy, when he's more explosive, and Cejudo is possibly even gasping for air. This is the first time we'll see him go 5 rounds, so that's going to be interesting. Maybe he shocks the world. I would be shocked. Some people are saying it's a closer fight. I don't think so. I like Demetrius Johnson by probably 49-46 or 50-45 decision. It would even be a bit of a surprise if Cejudo was able to capitalize enough to win 1 or 2 rounds. That's how confident and how good I think DJ is. Main event time, the return of the pound-for-pound king. Finally, John Bones Jones taking on Vincent Preux, not Daniel Cormier. This fight is for the interim light heavyweight title championship. John Jones should probably win. Do you think OSP? Same question. Do you think OSP has a chance here?
I mean, yes. I mean, OSP does have a legitimate chance here. And even if OSP was like a can, which he isn't, he still has a chance. Because, come on, this is MMA. Anything can happen in the sport. This is that one sport where you really like the least fighter that you can think of against the best fighter has a chance because of those gloves, right? But with that said, And I also have an article on John Jones that's out right now with today's knockout about how we've all been so focused on the Conor McGregors, the Ronda Rouseys, even like the lesser stars like Sage Northcutt and Paige Vincent, but they were all flawed fighters in comparison to how popular they were, right? I mean, how popular they were was not equal to how good they were. I mean, John Jones is actually a fighter whose popularity is actually equal to how good he is. This guy is just so good everywhere, and I'm not gonna spend 20 minutes breaking down just how good he is in every facet of the game, but I'm just gonna say that he's gonna school OSP out there, man. I mean, unless OSP lands clean on him and hurts him, then I think John Jones is gonna take OSP to school.
Yeah, I like John Jones here as well. I like him by submission. A decision wouldn't shock me, although I do think there's a better chance of Jones finishing this than taking it the distance. A knockout wouldn't surprise me. Ovin St. Preux just is not on Jones's level. I think Jones' best bet is wrestling him, grinding him out, winning by sub. Eventually, he grabbed that neck, rear naked choke, guillotine, whatever. I think that's what's going to happen, but he could keep it standing, make it look a bit fun, and then land a kick or a punch or whatever, and lights out for OSP. OSP, his only chance here is to land a flush, a clean punch here, win by knockout. Jones' the only intriguing thing about this fight is that Jones, his layoff, he could look worse than he did when he was a champion. We'll see what happens, but I like John Jones here by submission. I think he dominates the fight, however long it lasts, and goes on to become the champion once again in a unification fight rematch with DC. Now, Paolo, thank you very much for joining us once again. You can follow Paolo on Twitter at GoPaoloMMA. Check out his work at Today's Knockout and Sportsnet.ca. You can follow me on Twitter at NickUFC. Check out my work on BloodyElbow.com and my podcast on BloodyElbow.com, the MMA Circus I hosted with Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence each and every week. With that, thank you for listening and enjoy the fights.